Hello everyone, this is the recap for March 2nd. The first thing we talked about is we revisited this need for solution and a reminder that it's due March 12th, not just need for solution, but the entire inquiring and analyzing stage is due March 12th, and that is a week from Thursday. Now, there's not a whole lot of work in here to do, but you can't get started until you come up with a project idea. So that's important. Most students still have not submitted a project idea. And I'll talk about some more ideas or things you could think about. Again, the point here is even if you don't know how to do something in C, don't let that limit or restrict what you consider doing. Now, I will show you a couple of ideas that have come in so far, just to give you some hints. Now, I think I mentioned this before, but Ingrid is going to create a program that can decipher the shift cipher. This has to do with there's an incoming, her program will accept an incoming encrypted message, and then the program will attempt to determine what the cipher code was used to encrypt it, and then use that code to decrypt the message. Here are a couple more examples. Adrian is going to create a text-based, that should be text-based role-playing game. Alexander is going to do an NHL prediction simulator. Cindy's going to do some budget program. I don't have all the details on these. They've proposed it. I've given everybody feedback so far, so they're still fleshing them out. Michael's going to do some trivia quiz games. We'll ask a question. There'll be 4 possible answers, and the user picks one of the answers. And Ryan is creating a graphing calculator, and Yang is going to create his conversion app to convert, I guess, currency and units of measure from one to another. Now, there's something I'd like to talk about, and that's called Ncurses. And yeah, this is a little background history on this, and to show that, let's come over to Online GDB, and I'm going to go to My Projects, and down here in Ncurses, I have a project called Go2XY, and this program is going to display a grid of characters on the screen using an escape sequence to reposition the cursor. That means, well, let's just run the program and you'll see what it does. And now this program is not using the Ncursors library, which I'll talk about in a minute. Here is the function which can reposition the cursor. I'll run it and then I'll explain the code a little bit. I have to make the console large first and then run it. And there it is. So it drew this grid of stars starting at this location up here in the console. Now, I did not print or display blank lines to get down to here, and I did not use tabs to get into here. I moved the cursor to this location and then began displaying text. Let's see how that got done. So over here on line 13, there is this cryptic piece of code between the quotation marks. This is called an escape sequence. And the parameter here is, this is the escape character. And this character is being inserted into this escape sequence. Don't ask me to explain this thing, because I don't know the syntax of these escape sequences. And then the X and Y coordinates of the console screen are also passed into here. And by displaying this or sending this to the console, it has the effect of moving the cursor to some location on the screen. Now, a word about the screen. If you look over here at the terminal window, I'm just going to clear this. This terminal window has a coordinate system associated with it. Now, if you recall it from scratch, the geometry of the stage was 0, 0 in the middle. And if you went left or right, the x value of the sprite changed. So if it went to the right, the x value increased. If it went to the left, the x value decreased. If I went north, the y value increased. And if I went south, the y value decreased. This is not the case with the console. There is the position 0, 0 is here in the upper left corner where that letter M is. So X goes to the right and Y goes down. Now, I'm saying X and Y, it's really about rows and columns. So we have a number of rows in this window, and we have a number of columns in the window. And as you change the size of the window, the number of rows and columns changes. And you can write, using this Xcursor program, which I'll show you in a minute, you can, I'm just going to clear the screen again, your program can adapt to the size of this window. Now, in the early days of computing, before there was Windows, before there was Mac OS, before there were any graphical user interfaces, this is what computer users were faced with. They would display commands in here, so I could list all the folders in files in a directory. I could change directories. I could go up one level and list the files up there. I could go down a level. Let's see, I want to go back down to this level here. So I want to go to Ncurses. Now I can press tab there and then auto-complete it. And now I'm back where I started. And there are many commands that you could enter here. And this is a list of them. And yeah, this is how computer users interfaced with the machine. And once you got good at this, it was a very powerful environment. I remember when graphical user interfaces first came along, people that were accustomed to this environment thought that the graphical user interface, the windowing system, was for sissies, for people that really didn't know what they were doing. And that attitude persisted for a long time. In fact, I don't know that it's completely gone. If you go down to the ICT office on the 4th floor at the school, and you talk to Alvin Jones, he's in charge of our networks, and he works with all the network servers. And this is the kind of environment he works in. There are no graphical user interfaces running on those servers. They take up too many resources and they're not needed. For someone like him who knows what he's doing, this is all he needs. So in the early days, if you want to do something more graphical in this console window, you would use these escape sequences, and there are many. I can use an escape sequence to put the cursor over here. I can use an escape sequence to display, once the text is displayed at this location, then I could underline the text, make it bold, change the color. I could draw a box here that looks like a window, all kinds of things. But you had to know what those escape sequences were, and as you can see, they're pretty cryptic. And this would be very hard to work with, but that's how it was done back in the day. Now, in this case, I'll get to, in a minute, how we can avoid doing this. But
it's 16 hours.
This program uses this function to move the cursor to some position on the screen. And it keeps doing that. It's going through this nested loop. So the top loop, the outer loop is for the columns. The inner loop is for the rows. And it goes to the XY location, draws a star, then loops again, goes to the next position, and then draws another star and continues until it finishes the whole grid. Now, if I change, let me zoom out. Now, if I change the code, let's say I want to change the location and the dimension of that grid. I can say, now let's see, X is the is the column. I want to start in column 40, and I want to go to column 45. Well, it'd be 44 since it's less than 45. Let's keep the rows the same. Now if I run this, let's make this big, it will move the grid. It changed the size of the grid, and it moved it to another location. So that's a very fast way of doing that, much faster than what we've been doing before in our exercises. Now you can make this even cooler by not having to edit the source code here, but prompting the user for the location and size of the array of stars. So this is an example of how things were done in the early days using escape sequences. Now let me show you something else. There is the library here called, let me get to the home page of it. This is called Ncurses. And this was created in 2001, and it looks to me like the last time they updated this is 2005. That's 15 years ago. But it all works, and it's well documented, and I've been playing with it for a couple of days and have gotten a few things to work. There's lots of documentation here. If you're interested in doing something more graphical on the screen, this is, I think, the tool that you should consider using. So there's some introduction, shows you how to do a hello world program, how to initialize the screen, talks a little bit about windows, how to output to the window, how to get input from the window. You can change the attributes of text that's on the screen. This is for creating multiple windows on the screen. You can fiddle with colors, you can get how to access the keyboard. You can even interface with the mouse. And there's more stuff here. Panels has to do with overlapping windows. Menus is what you think. You can create nice looking menus on the screen. And I forget what forms is, but anyway, let's look at a couple of examples of how you might use this. Now, I've taken some of their code and imported it into Online GDB, and I'm just going to leave that. I'm not going to save the change. So I'm coming back to my projects. Yeah, I want to leave. Okay, now note that you can create folders in here. So I have a folder called Ncurses, and I created these files. The ones that are numbered came from the source code that you get from over here. If you come up to the introduction, it tells you somewhere where you can get their stuff. See, it says here about the programs, and then all the programs in this document are available from this link. And I also put this on the lessons page. So I downloaded their stuff, and I've been going through it. And yeah, so here are some of the things I got from them. Now this is a program that can display some text in bold. That's sort of interesting. I'll let you run that on your own. There's a couple of more interesting ones. Let's come down here. Here you can display text at different locations on the screen. So let's have a look at that one. So I'm going to let's see what I'll explain what it does first. So this is going to display text at the center of the screen and then some text at the bottom of the screen. So let's maximize this and run it and see what that looks like. So it discovered where the center of the screen was and wrote this string. Then it moved the cursor over to here and it wrote this string, and it figured out how many rows and how many columns are on this screen. Now you cannot resize the console inside Online GDB. I mean, you can do this, but this is not really, well, it seems to be like it is. It's resizing it vertically. But yeah, not quite, because this is no longer in the center. So you really can't resize this console the way you can resize the terminal window, like so. So, how did they do that? Well, there is a function in the Ncurses library called getMaxXY, and you can get the number of rows and columns on the screen. And then you can use that to control how to move the cursor. So here, this move function, also from their library. So I'm moving the cursor to the middle of the screen. It's rows divided by 2 and columns divided by 2. And then I display this message there. Then I move the cursor again down to the bottom of the screen and print another message. On the next line, I print the final message. So let's look at another example, something different. So I'll go back to Ncursers. And so we can display text. I can draw. This is an interesting one. Now this one I'm going to run in the terminal window because you can see the effect of this much better over here. So if I do an ls, I can see the names of my files in this folder. And the one I want to run is, which one is it? This mh draw square. So the first thing I have to do is compile it. So this is the GNU C compiler. Then you give it the name of the file you want to compile. Now I can press tab now and it auto-completes the name. And then you have to supply a parameter to the linker. -L, it refers to the linker. That's another program that runs after the compiler. And it's going to link in the Ncurses library into this program. So it's compile and link, and it's complaining about that. Don't worry about that for now. Now I want to run the program, and the output file from this compile line is called a.out. You can there's not one here now, but yeah, it creates this file called that, and the dot slash means this file is in the current folder, current directory. So let's execute that. Enter. This is the wrong one. So let's clear that. Sorry guys. Let's clear that off. ls. Where is the? Okay, I'm going to pause the. I'm not finding draw square. Display various text, display text in bold, various locations. Okay, I'm going to pause the video for a second.